Blake, without consulting Google or anyone else at Church Gear, name 5 brands of audio mixer.
Yamaha, DiGiCo, Allen & Heath, Avantis, and I couldn't think of a 5th.
Avantis isn't one, by the way.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who picks up more gear knowledge around here than most people think. And I'm here with my co-host who knows everything about every piece of gear we've ever bought, ever, Toby Walters.
That's a lot of ever.
Yep.
Especially for a man who thinks Avantis is a brand name of an audio mixer.
What is an Avantis then?
It's an Allen & Heath model.
All right.
Allen & Heath Avantis.
Well, is that on the board?
It is a board, but it's not a brand. It's a model.
I'm counting that at half. 3.5.
What car do you drive?
A Nissan Rogue.
What's the brand?
Nissan.
Nissan. Is Rogue a brand?
You might as well. Yes.
No, it's a model.
It's a sub-brand.
Are
you talking to your brand director about brands? It's a sub-brand. Can I get 3.5 out of 5?
No.
3.25.
You get 3 out of 5.
Okay.
60%. That was your GPA.
Yes. Well, and that'll be what I get paid this week. People don't realize I'm paid by podcast performance. So
yeah, 60% of your paycheck. Sweet. So I've been doing some fun, and me and Dave Roediger and Drew Hester and several other people. Like,
your favorites now that they're here, and I'm no longer
totally.
the favorite.
I mean, we don't take you out to churches because you're embarrassing. Because you think Avantis, you're like, oh, is that the brand Avantis? And we're like, So we get to do a lot of church site visits, which is so much fun. And so I want to do a quick recap and what they're running at front of house, because that's always interesting for tech directors.
Which church?
What are they running at front of house? So I'll start with Brentwood Baptist. We went to Brentwood Baptist, which is right next door to where you go to church, Blake, at Fellowship.
Yeah, where we used to go.
And so, Blake, I wrote it down here. How do you pronounce that right there?
All right, this word is an L-A-W-O-S. Laws?
So
Lawos.
if I delete the L, that's the name of the brand, L-A-W-O. How do you pronounce that?
Lawo.
No, incorrect.
Lawoo.
It's Lavo.
Yeah, screw that. That's not true.
See, the manufacturer is a German, and so that's how you pronounce it, I guess. It's his last name, Lavo, but they have a couple Lavo consoles, which are very unique. Like, those are often broadcast desks, like SNL uses Lavos for their deal. And then I went down to, Blake, it's February. It's cold a lot in Nashville.
Toby's going to flee to California and Florida.
Well, California's too far to fly because I hate to fly, so I just fly to Florida. And so I was just down in Florida, went to Calvary Chapel, Fort Lauderdale, and they're running D-Live. Who makes D-Live, Blake?
Allen & Heath.
Did you guess, or did I have that written there?
You did not have it written there.
Oh, but you got it.
I listen every now and then.
And Coastal Community Church down there in Parkland, they had a D-Live as well. Bayside Community over in they're in Bradenton. They had a D-Live as well. Like, these D-Lives are kind of taken over in Florida a little bit.
Everyone likes the D-Live. We've gotten a couple D-Lives in, haven't we?
No,
or no,
not.
I'm thinking of D-Show.
So, speaking of D-Shows, they didn't have D-Shows, but it was
D's shows.
Oh, man, that's going to get dumb real quick. So went to Christ Fellowship in West Palm Beach, and they are an avid house. So they have 14 campuses. Now, granted, I didn't go to all 14 campuses.
Slacker.
But there were avids everywhere I saw. So they got SXLs at their broadcast campus. They got a venue profile at the remote campus that I went to. And then Church of the City, where I go, they're running Ravages.
Also, Toby doesn't have a list of all of these churches and their consoles. He's such a freak of nature. He remembers all of this right now. He's just prattling it off in his mind. It's so crazy. I want to get the people what they want without having to write things down. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. I don't want anything that's uncomfortable. And writing down details and keeping copious notes, that's boring to me, Blake. I'll just remember everything. If only I had that kind of memory. That would be so amazing.
Yeah.
I'll tell you someone that I will never forget. It's the training and application support for Group 1 and DiGiCo, but he'd rather you call him boss man. I mean, he's a man who's been cringing at every bit of this opening story. Kyle McMahon. Kyle, what's up? And why is he cringing at this, Toby? Does he not love consoles? What's going on here?
You talked about a lot of other churches, but none with DiGiCo, so thanks.
Toby, you do this to our guests?
Now, I didn't even tell you, of course, Blake goes to Fellowship. David Mills, Do you know David?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Fellowship is a big DiGiCo house. They love DiGiCo.
Yeah, because
And
I go to the good church.
I mean, we'll get into this obviously in this episode with Kyle, but like DiGiCo's, I feel like kind of taken over a little bit. So we see a ton of DiGiCos, and Kyle, I feel like we clean up your guys' scraps because all these churches have these wide eyes on these, new DiGiCo boards, and then they call us up and say, "Hey, will you buy our previous board?" We're like, "Sure, these are still great boards, but not quite a quantum."
Yeah, we had a week where we had a couple DiGiCo pieces come in all at once, and that we do this thing called the early service, Kyle, where we do some videos of it. That's our best.
Yeah, I
video.
saw that.
It's our best video to date, still, like in terms of total views. People love the DiGiCo.
That was a good DiGiCo week. SD10, SD9, S31s, like that was the tidal wave of DiGiCos coming into that week.
Is that what I'm hearing? That we're buying all these old boards, and that they're because people are upgrading for DiGiCo. Like, are you throwing a slam at every other board company out there?
Not at all. I'm sure Kyle would because he works for Group 1.
Kyle, would you say everyone else is just battling for second?
I would, yeah.
I love a man with confidence.
That's
a
right.
man with confidence. That's great. Well, Kyle, if we haven't made you too uncomfortable to turn off your Zoom yet, we're going to keep going forward here with 5 truths and a lie. Do you think you can beat us, judging off of our intelligence of the past 5 minutes?
I think I got you.
Okay.
Talk about a man with confidence.
I like this confidence.
Number 1, I have had to place lavalier mics on 2 former presidents and Bill Cosby. So he got, so he at least caught one disease from these 3 individuals, is what I'm hearing by placing a mic on them.
Gosh.
Number 2, I once did a show on a $250 million super yacht on the Adirondack Sea in Croatia.
Oh my gosh.
Adriatic.
Blake, you're just so cute when you try.
I was so confident too because I knew what Adirondack was, and then I heard my brain say that's not that word.
What's Adirondack, Blake?
That's up in like New York area. It's
Yeah.
like the mountains.
Yeah, good.
Number 3,
Ish.
I am an introverted person and I don't like public speaking.
Oh, just like Blake.
Kyle, do you really? Well, I guess we can't ask him yet.
No.
Number 4, I am very into. I was very into Glee Club in high school. Now, was that the show or actually in Glee Club?
I don't think it's the show that he's referring to in this potential truth or lie,
Number 5, I was president of the junior high AV club.
which would have qualified them to place a lavalier mic on the U.S. American president.
Yes.
That's redundant. U.S. and American.
Most of this show is redundant. Number 6, I have been to over 50 countries and 49 states. Goodness gracious. So
That's
then
a lot.
He would have been to more countries than states. How many people can say that?
That's true.
Okay.
Blake, I feel like the theme of all these episodes with these guests are that they have done so much more than you.
Much more travel at the very least.
Accomplishments and intelligence. They know how to say Adriatic instead of Adirondack.
But Toby, I work at Church Gear and accomplish things for Church Gear. So what does that say about your judgment?
That's a good point. All right, what are we gonna? These are some. Good.
This is a really great list. I'm going to
man.
pick the one that has already screwed me, the Adriatic. I'm going to say that one's the lie.
Okay.
I'm going to lock it on that one.
I'm gonna say he looks like because we assume he's an introvert because he's a tech. Because a lot of techs are introverts. It's like what draws them to the tech industry. But I'm going to say that's the lie, that he's actually don't you ride my coattails.
Nope, I'm changing. I'm changing to...
I already called introverted and you can't call it.
That's fine. I'm going to change to the 50 countries and 49 states because I just can't fathom someone being to that many countries.
And you don't want to have to say Adriatic correctly one more time.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, Kyle, what's the lie?
So there was no AV club in junior high. So
Oh, man.
That was the most obvious one.
yeah,
got
I
us.
did a lot of stuff around the school with AV, but there was no kind of club. I went to a very, very small school. So the rest of that stuff I did.
So, okay, if you're introverted and you don't like public speaking, are you having to do a lot of that with training and application support? Like you
Exactly.
training
Thanks,
groups of
Ryan
people?
Shelton. Thanks, Ryan Shelton, for hiring me for a position where I'm always. Now, I'm okay when I'm talking about stuff that I know about. I'm completely fine doing that. If it was a subject that I wasn't interested in or didn't know anything about, then it'd be a totally different story. But yeah, I'm like most of our master series classes, there may be about 40 people in there, and I'm okay with that. I still get very, very nervous. But just like I'm nervous being on a podcast, but yeah, I am a very introverted person compared to some of the people that I work with.
I was going to say, Kyle, don't start a podcast because I speak about stuff I don't know about for a living now. And you see how well that's going for me. Tell us about placing the lavalier mics on 2 former presidents of Bill Cosby. What the heck? When did that happen?
Okay, and those are different occasions. 2 of them were Butler University up here had a series back. It was probably about 2004, 2005 maybe, where President Bush Sr. Came in on one event, and then a couple weeks later, I think it was Bill Clinton came in, and so both of those, I was one of the main audio people on it, and then had to interface with Secret Service, and then sit near, right in the front row in case there was an issue, and run up a microphone in case, the lavalier had an issue during the show or the speaking event. So did both those presidents twice. One was about 2 weeks apart, and then in the next year, 2 different events I did that were more like corporate events. They both spoke at different events, and so I got to mic them up again. And it's interesting, like both times, a lot of the times is the Secret Service stays on that, with that one person, that detail, even after that time. So I got to meet them again. They give you a special pin, so if you're somewhere, they can identify you where you are, and if you have certain clearances. But yeah, and then the Bill Cosby thing was just a one-off event at another university, and it was well before. This was probably 2001, 2002, and so it was well before all the allegations and stuff like that. But that was probably even more nerve-wracking than dealing with the president.
What? Than the president's? Why? He doesn't have armed guards ready to shoot you, I would assume.
I don't know. When somebody's completely iconic like that, I think you're so nervous. Like the Secret Service is, you meet them first and they're like, hey, we're going to do this. And they kind of give you the whole deal of what's going to happen. And hey, we're just going to get you mic'd up. And you're kind of just in the background, putting their microphone on and this and that. And they're kind of talking to people around them. So you're there, but not interacting, where Bill Cosby, it's like, go to his dressing room and you need to put a microphone on him. So.
And Blake, I know you're a different generation than me, but Bill Cosby is he was a hugely iconic celebrity. It's like if you met
Dave Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle. There you go.
Yeah.
I know that I'm a culturally uncultured swine on this podcast, but even I know how big of a deal Ben Cosby. Bill Cosby. I know the name.
Blake, we talked about drinking before these episodes.
Listen, you told me to keep doing it. No, Bill Cosby has an iconic skit where he talks about how he grew up thinking his name was Dammit growing up.
Oh, yeah.
And I kid you not, someone showed me that in college. I cried for 3 minutes of laughter because that was my childhood.
Yeah.
So I love Bill. Well,
because your
comedy,
dad is Hank from King of the Hill, basically.
Yes. Yeah. So, art and person aside, I love Bill Cosby for his jokes. That's hysterical.
Okay, do you even know who owned the $250 million super yacht, or was it?
And did you have to sign an NDA?
Kind of an NDA, yeah. I've got some videos I'll share with you offline of flying a helicopter there and off the super yacht, because that's how we had to get back to the main airport, was from from the actual super yacht. So over 400 feet long, over 60 feet wide. So, and enough that you can put an actual couple bands on there to play little private events. So
I'm guessing this was not a Tomlin show.
This was not a Tomlin show, no.
No, Toby, this was obviously Need to Breathe. So I'm guessing you can't tell us who.
It's definitely not.
So you can't tell us who it was, I'm guessing? That's okay.
I can't tell you. Yeah. I'll tell you offline, but yeah.
Was it Michael Jackson or Beyonce, Blake? We're just guessing now because we don't know, but.
I was going to say Beyonce.
Yeah.
We're in sync today. So you've really been to 50 countries? That's crazy.
Over 50 countries. I tried to go through a list a couple days ago, and I was like, they're there. And I think when I was counting up, it was like 53 or 54.
Does the world feel small to you at this point?
It is a small world. Everything is connected, especially in our industry. It's like, you never want to burn bridges because everybody knows everybody. So, but it's when you're traveling a lot, it gets very confusing. What season it is. Like this, not so much when you're traveling in the US, because, okay, I'm going to go to Florida. But when you're going to like places like, Australia during the winter here and it's summer over there, and, where you're south of the equator in certain places, and you come back and you're like, I have no idea, what time of year it is. It's like, haven't we already had summer? Oh, I was just over that, in that spot for 3 weeks or whatever. And time kind of melts together.
Kyle. I just figured out that we're going to have Church Gear Australia now, so that Toby has a place to go in the winter.
I'm just chasing summer as my new life goal.
But Australia's too dangerous. I can't let you be over there. Kangaroo will kick you in the face.
Spiders and snakes.
That's snakes, yeah.
I always say Brad Law, who mixes for Hillsong United, I was like, how are you still alive? Like, how do you live there? Everything's trying to kill you.
With a gun on one hip and a machete in the other hand.
That's right. So, Kyle, there was no AV club in middle school, so that's not how you got into tech. Tell us, a little bit about your background. What got you into tech?
It's had some hi-fi gear around the house that my dad had, and so I kind of got drawn to that very early on, and also had an uncle that had a lot of really cool like stereo equipment, and so I thought that was cool. But I started doing stuff just at I grew up, and I still go to a Lutheran church, so very like scaled down mixers, all powered all in one type setups and things like that, and just kind of learned it. And then when I was in 4th grade, so I'm not as young as Aaron Padilla, but so I was around 9 or 10, and my parents helped me buy some DJ equipment, some professional speakers and things like that. And I started DJing very, very young, and then also was into doing like actual, mixing with microphones and things like that for choir events and Vacation Bible School, and actually mixed in starting in high school, started mixing some other schools in our county outside of the one that I was in, went to. So just kind of got the bug there, and then, continued on. When I went to university, I went for both musical engineering technology and technical theater. So I got out of the technical theater or the music engineering technology program. It was more of a recording based thing, and you wouldn't get into a studio until you were like junior year. And I had already been doing live audio before I got to, college at Ball State, and just liked doing the, the theater part of it and the live audio thing, and just kind of stuck with that. So while I was in college, I got an internship with a local production company and started working there after my freshman year, and then, worked there all during the summers and on breaks, and then continued that after I graduated. So I caught the bug pretty early, not Aaron Padilla early, but fairly early.
That's really cool. So man, you do all that. And I think it's so hard whenever I'm in these episodes to hear like yacht and then went to normal college.
It was super yacht, by the way.
Well, you know what I mean though? It's like, it's crazy that to go from that to then like, you then also were on the road with Chris Tomlin. Like, you're basically Jeff Sandstrom's mentor. I mean, like, what's like? Tell us some of the cool stories and lessons learned the hard way while you were on the road with Chris. And I still also am like, how do you get from Ball State College to that? Like, my best friend since kindergarten went to Ball State. It's a normal college. It's a cool college. But then you're friggin' mixing for Chris Tomlin and on the yacht. So how does this happen?
It's some of it's being in the right place at the right time. So as I was working for that production company, I had done 2 or 3 events out on, in Denver and on the West Coast where Chris happened to be playing. And at the time he didn't have he didn't have a monitor engineer. So John Mills at the time, who now works for EAW, was the front of house engineer. And I just happened to be there and, mix monitors for him on a couple one-offs back in like 2002, 2003, some 2004. And then in 2006, Jeff Sandstrom was mixing Catalyst Conference in Atlanta. And I hadn't met Jeff up until then, but I was actually brought in because the conference was using a PM5D at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff didn't know how to use it. So I came in to show Jeff, how to run that PM5D, because he hadn't had a lot of experience on it. So I was just there doing that. And Jeff at the time wasn't out with Tomlin, but the production manager for Tomlin at the time was on that conference. And so he asked me, I had been out with several different artists in that time period, but they were like, hey, Chris needs a engineer coming up for one of the next upcoming tour runs. Would you like to go out? And my schedule was open. So I went out and started in the fall of 2006. And then Jeff came on, I think he was fall 2007 or early 2008. We were doing some Passion regional events at the time. So Jeff was doing the Passion regional events, and then there was a different engineer that was doing the front of house on the normal tour events for Chris. And then eventually they asked Jeff to be the full-time guy, I think late 2007, early 2008. And then we toured the world together for about 10 years. So
I love what I got from that story is that you taught Jeff how to use a PM5D. I think that's our clip right there. I mean, we did suggest that he was Jeff's mentor. So, and I joke about that because I feel like half the guests we have on talk about a moment in which they got mentored by Jeff Sandstrom. And then Jeff taught me this, and Jen taught me this. So I love that you taught Jeff how to use the PM5D.
Yeah, at the time I was touring with whoever wanted to hire me, and at the time, Avid Profile was really, really new at that point. It had only been out for maybe about a year. The D show came out in 2004, I believe. And so this was, 2005, 2006. And yeah, he needed help, not with mixing, but just knowing where all the buttons were and how to do things. And so I ran into the production manager, which I kind of knew. And then that turned into a very long career with Chris, where I was with Chris at monitors for about 10 years and then front of house for 2 years until I left that to do what I'm doing now. So
tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. When did you jump on with Group One, and explain to Blake? Blake's thinking I thought he worked for DiGiCo. So tell us
been thinking that this
what
whole
Group
time.
One is.
Yeah, so Group One is the distributor for DiGiCo here in the U.S. So we bring in DiGiCo, and then we handle distributing it to the dealers. We handle training, support, anything that has to do with, between DiGiCo and the customer. We're that middle person. Then we've got regional reps around the country that are kind of our boots on the ground, that are interfacing with the actual dealers. And my screen just froze. So
your face is just sitting there.
Flickered.
We can hear you though.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Well,
yeah.
In any case, my power just flickered too. So let me know if it does go out.
Okay. Your audio is great.
But
Kyle did tell us, for everyone, that a huge tornado was about to eat his house right before we recorded, just for context.
Yeah, the actual alarm went off my phone, even though it was silenced. It was like, hey, warning, tornado warning until this time. So
yeah.
But I'm already in my basement. So
yeah.
But yeah, so with DiGiCo, I started with them doing one-off trainings back in 2016 and 2017. Ryan Shelton was in a position where he was getting very, very busy. So they asked me to fill in where Ryan couldn't do some trainings. And then that turned into a full-time thing. I was ready to get off the road. in a a touring aspect, and so moved from an actual touring engineer to now just handling kind of training and support for DiGiCo and Klang products.
Okay, Kyle, so this is just my hot take, having been around church tech since COVID happened. And for Blake, his hot take would be, oh, yes, the best manufacturer of audio mixers is Avantis. So his hot take is a little cuter.
My hot take would be whoever makes the Focusrite is the best manufacturer of boards.
That would be Focusrite.
Do they make boards?
They do.
Oh, okay, cool.
Not for live audio.
Do they make them that color red?
No.
All right, no deal. No deal.
When COVID hit, like the major console manufacturers had to suddenly pivot as the supply chain crashed, essentially. And I feel like, for Yamaha, they just sort of like stood pat. They're like, yeah, we have a million other product lines. We don't need to do anything crazy. Allen and Heath, they still kind of did what they did. But I feel like you guys almost used it as a moment to become like the most... like the coolest, the most cutting edge console manufacturer in the space, while everybody else was like scrambling to just find chips. How did you guys seemingly pivot into these new products that are just making waves, and you're sourcing chips somehow and making all these new cool designs? Like, what was the panic level like behind the scenes?
Well, I think I can't speak into all of it, but I do know, being part of Audiotonics. So when you've got, an umbrella like that has multiple brands underneath it, you do have a lot of buying power. So between DiGiCo, Klang, SSL, Allen and Heath, not all parts are completely shared between all the brands, but there are some similar things between them. So, but being a company that has that many companies underneath it, they were able to get some, a lot of parts to keep moving. Now, when COVID kind of started, that first whole year, we were keeping fairly busy with installs because a lot of those things were arranged even before even COVID had started. So that kept keeping things moving. Even up into a lot of 2021, things were moving pretty well. Once we got to the end of 2021, there was a lot of things worldwide. There were still shutdowns, and certain factories would shut down, so you couldn't get certain parts. So just the small little things that could, stop products from moving altogether was starting to happen a little bit here and there. And so it wasn't just one part, it would be random things here and there that would slow the supply chain. So, worldwide, the biggest one was Audinate and Dante. There's a chip on the Brooklyn modules that became end of life and unavailable. And so everybody was feeling the pain there because, people want to use Dante, and obviously, Dante has kind of grown in the last 10, 12 years. Everybody wants to use it, but, when there's none of it available, then it's kind of like, how do you keep moving? Luckily, our background for all of our desks, Maddie is going to be standard really on everything. So even though Maddie's not a network interface, it's a point-to-point connection between, a digital stage box and our console. That kept us being able to ship, just because our system wasn't designed around Dante. Obviously, we, were able to use Dante, but that's, it's never going to stop us completely. So between Maddie and Opticore, it did keep us moving. And so same thing in the case of Klang. Klang does use more Dante modules and things like that. So so that slowed some of our new products like the vocal processor down. But we are at the end of the road. We've got our new modules for like the vocal processors. So those are starting to ship in quantities, where it was kind of sad unveiling a product like that was going to be so popular, and then the limitation is it has a Dante module and you can't get it. So, the people that got in very early on got pretty lucky because, they got their product and then things did extend out a bit, but we're kind of at the end of the road there, and we're starting to be able to ship some of the new, Dante products that, with our DMI cards and things like that. So hopefully things start to subside from here and get back to, the old normal.
Yeah, everybody
before times normal.
Everybody wants the Dantes. Even I last Friday was hanging out with Jeremy, a worship pastor, best buddy, and he was talking about how he just needs some Dante stuff. I was like, brother, I can get you some Dante cards.
It's cute how you say that.
I can, right?
They might not be the kind that he needs. Like, just because they have Dante on them doesn't mean they are the infrastructure that he needs for his specific setup.
There's different Dante cards?
Yes.
All right.
Many different ones.
Okay, well, Kyle, let's get some intelligence back into these audio waves here. So tell us some of the new trends or innovations that we should expect from DiGiCo or other brands that Group 1 has like in the near future. Give us an inside scoop, and can you get us some different Dante cards that I can get for my buddy?
Well, we'll see on the Dante cards. There's a lot of back orders to be filled first. But I would say, working with Audiotonics and having that many brands underneath that umbrella, I think there is going to be a lot of innovation. Coming up, we can't talk about some of it. It is going to be an exciting year.
It's just the three of us, Kyle. You can tell us.
Definitely come out and visit us at trade shows this year. I'm not going to get into, what's on the horizon, but the software engineers are going forward and adding a lot of the feature requests that people have asked for in the past. And, I think it's going to be, a good year. Outside of that, I can't really get into specifics. Nope. There was some exciting things last year where Slate Digital was brought on under Audiotonics. So, Slate Digital making, plugins and things like that. So maybe in the future, some of those plugins are going to be ported over to multiple brands within the group. So we'll have to see. It's kind of still early with that, but obviously they bring a lot to the table.
And going back to the super yacht, I'm wondering, Kyle, if Blake and I and our millions of listeners all sign NDAs, can you then share all the insider information on what's coming with DiGiCo?
No.
He just shut me down.
I'm starting to think that Kyle picked up some of the secret from the Secret Service that he hung out with a long time ago.
He's holding a lot back here. I love it.
Well, maybe he won't hold back on Klang.
Yeah.
Talk to us about Klang. What does it really sound like for those who've never experienced it, i.e. me?
For Klang, if you haven't heard what Klang is, it's a German company that went into binaural processing for 3D in-ear monitors. So the whole idea behind listening to something in either a mono or normal separated stereo is, over time you have ear fatigue. So for instance, if you've ever dealt with just dealing with mono monitors, there's only so much you can put in your mix. Everything kind of stacks on top of each other. You can EQ things a little bit to sit in different areas, but there's just not a lot of room to put things. When you get into stereo, there's obviously, a lot more dimension into what you can do. Now, when you go into Klang, it's takes a lot of the, a lot of what musicians did not like about in-ear monitors as far as like closing you off. You can add audience mics in and reverb to kind of give yourself some space so things don't feel so closed. But with the Klang binaural processing, it's essentially like having like a snow globe around you, like a sphere where you can put things on your ear level, all the way around your head, up and down in elevation. So from like your feet to directly above you, and having those options to put things in different places, your brain naturally interprets where those things are, and there's less fatigue over time. A lot of the times when we're doing demos, like on a trade show, and somebody comes up and they're like, well, yeah, there's a lot more space, but it's, when you're going back and forth between stereo and 3D, it's getting louder. So that's the trick, right? It's getting louder. And it's like, it's not getting louder at all. Like if you measured this like through smart, it's no louder. It's perceived image, and being able to put things in different places allows your brain to kind of recognize those focal points. So things of importance you can put in front of you, things that you need to hear but are less important you can put behind you or lower in the mix as far as elevation. And there's a lot less EQ involved when you do this also, because a lot of times people are trying to, for in-ears, they're creating EQ to try to put something in a certain space. Well, there's less EQ involved when you're able to put things up and down in elevation and completely around you. So it's just like if you are ever in like a loud restaurant, for instance, and you're talking to people across the table from you, you're able to, listen to them and focus in on what they're saying, where there's all kinds of things going on behind you, clinking glasses and silverware and all that is there. It's making noise, but your brain isn't worrying about it. So same idea, by putting stuff in the foreground that's important, putting stuff that's less important in the back. And it's not like some people think that it's going to be like going to a movie and it's Atmos and it's things flying over. It's very, very subtle, but the people that have used it, the biggest thing about it is you're able to listen at a much lower level. When Kevin McCarthy, Tater is his name, not the Speaker of the House, but there's an engineer that has been using Klang from very early on. He started using it with Linkin Park, and they said the drummer used to listen to his clicks so loud, but by just putting it in front of him and slightly up, they were able to bring down his entire mix close to 6 dB just because of being able to space things out.
Wow.
So at the end of the day, the biggest thing about it is you're going to be able to, save on hearing over a long day of listening to, rehearsals and doing multiple surfaces. By the end of that last, rehearsal, your ears aren't going to be fatigued and ringing. So,
Toby, am I hearing that we just found the solution to turn it down at church? Everyone just needs Klang?
This is for the in-ear mixes for the musicians, the people on stage.
Dang it. I thought I'd solved Karen.
I know. I'm sorry, Blake. Is this whole conversation blowing your mind a little bit?
Well, I'm just remembering the experience at MXU headquarters where they played that immersive experience. I'm just imagining it's like this, but in your body.
A little bit. Yeah.
Wow. Huh.
It was, yeah. How would you compare it to listening to immersive audio through, the L-Acoustic Lisa or the D&B, the immersive systems?
A little bit different. Like the whole idea again with the binaural processing is it's more of a natural experience. Like if you weren't wearing in-ears and you're out on stage and you've got wedges and the band is naturally around you, it's placing things like that. I think, between, the D&B Soundscape and Elisa from L-Acoustics and other manufacturers that are doing immersive, those are a little bit more creative in I'm going to have things moving around a little bit more. It's obviously trying to do the same type of thing. And it's also, in the case of those, immersive products, what they're trying to do is level the field a little bit in a concert as far as where things are coming from. In a normal situation, if it's just a, normal left and right PA, the majority of the audience isn't getting that if you're panning something hard left or hard right or in between that, depending on where they're sitting. So one of the big things about that, like, whether it be whether it be a Lisa or Soundscape, is kind of giving everybody, these focal points of where things are inside the image. So I think, I was there for the MXU demo when they opened up the headquarters, or the Soundscape demo, and it's definitely really impressive. Did you guys get to go to the first mixing event there that they
Blake and I didn't, but Dave and Drew went. They were there.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Toby's favorites were there.
Yeah. So what they did is, for the most part, they were doing mainly everything in like the left and right field. And then without really, they didn't even dial this up. They just had certain channels that they could put into the, immersive soundscape, like almost surrounds. And they just picked certain things. And just by doing that, moving it from that left and right to completely, encompassing or surrounding you, like reverbs and things like that. Very, very, very interesting. It's obviously a lot of speakers and things that need to be deployed. But it does make for, an immersive experience.
And I've never personally heard the Klang system. We actually have a Fabric in stock right now, but going back 10, 15 years when I was leading worship, I wanted to have something like that in my ears. Like it was you'd put your ears in and it was like you were closed off from the room. It's like you were separated. Even though you're trying to lead worship for a room with 1,000 people in it, you now feel like you're isolated up on stage because you're not hearing what they're hearing. Everything is just right
I have
in your
always
ears.
wondered how you do that.
Yeah, so I would often even just take one out so I could experience the room some, and then I kept having to turn up the other one because I couldn't hear what I needed to hear, and it's exhausting on your ears. So what you're describing, Kyle, was kind of like, I wish that existed back then when I was leading worship.
Yeah. And some of the other things about it is, they do give you other options as far as just the application itself. You're able to go into like an engineer or a musician queue mode, where if you need to help other musicians on stage, you can go from where your mix is, kind of select the mix that you want to go into, and then help dial that person's mix and then go back to your own mix. A lot of churches that we have using Klang, they'll take the sends off of the front of house console, send it into Klang, and then they've got an app, the application out front running on usually a touchscreen computer, and then they'll put one beside the side of the stage and then have a volunteer kind of monitoring that, almost like a secondary like monitor console position. Because by going into that queue mode, you just have a queue pack and you're able to listen. And if the frontline singers during the service need a slight adjustment, they can just look over and make the adjustment. So there's a lot of customization of what you want to do with the software. And you can talk to, Drew and his dad, Doug Hester.
We heard he's basically built Klang. Is that true?
Doug is very, very, very smart. Hey, I would like to do this. And the thing is, the Klang team is so, they're so involved that they're able to pivot pretty quickly. Hey, yeah, let's see if we tried this or that. And they can get, usually a beta out within usually a couple weeks. Now, Doug is very methodical in how he dictates things and how he wants it to happen. And so they can figure that out, as opposed to, somebody just requesting something that's just kind of in left field. But having, a team that's small enough to be able to pivot on those requests, makes it pretty cool.
Yeah, that does sound really cool. Speaking of cool, tell us about some of the coolest live events you've gotten to be present at over the last, year or two with DiGiCo. And I'm really hoping it's somehow connected to a Taylor Swift tour or the Washington Commanders Stadium. Or I see there's a One Republic native poster behind you, which is a perfect album, like literally one of the only perfect albums in history. So I'm hoping one of these is connected to those.
Yeah. So in the last 2 years, I wouldn't say there's been anything that's been like, really, really awesome. Just because I'm doing less events now, I'm going and doing trainings, and, I'm seeing what, churches are doing and this and that. And those things are cool. But as far as like events go, I'm so not involved on the, the front end of those anymore. Talking about the One Republic thing though, I sent you guys a video of one of the events we did back in 2014 at this, it was at the Paris Auto Show. And we were there for a few days before this event happened, but they were unveiling a few new cars. And I think one was either a complete electric or electric hybrid or something at that point. And One Republic was playing part of the event. So we got to see, what they were doing. But this hotel they had taken from, it was completely dilapidated, graffiti everywhere, just kind of a mess. And an investor bought the hotel and brought it back to its 1940s glory. It was actually, I guess, something that happened in the 40s. The bathing suit, the bikini was first shown there. So I don't know if it was part of like a fashion show or something, but that's where the bikini first was kind of unveiled to the world, was at this hotel. So it's kind of, this place has a lot of history, but one of the first events they did after it opened, like this opened probably late summer, and auto shows in like October. So what they did is they have an indoor pool, and they drained the pool. And there's a deep end and a shallow end, and they had cars on lifts that lift out of this, like almost out of the, like a low fog. So you don't see it, during this, reveal. There's just like the pool is filled with it. I sent you guys some videos from it. But all the behind the scenes to make this happen, from doing temperature control to make sure that the fog didn't rise out of it and then kind of give away the gag. But seeing some of that, probably one of the coolest things, and Jeff was part of this too, is this was an outdoor event we were doing with Passion Conferences on the world tour. And I think this was either 2008 or 2009, but we were in Uganda, in Kampala, the first time we'd went to Kampala, and there was all kinds of issues during load-in. Like, it was beautiful when we got there. Huge storm came over, video screens fell face first in the mud because they didn't have all the supports done yet. Our M7CLs got the tents that were there, they blew away, and the consoles got soaked, and the techs got them up and going, but with no phantom power and stuff like that. So it was like really hard to get up and going in this, this environment. Well, it came to doing the couple of show days, and the actual generators were just ancient, and they would keep turning off. But in one of the morning services, Matt Redmon was leading. Power goes out again. It was the first time the power had went out during an actual session. And so, everybody kind of knew on stage what was up, but this is the first time it happened in front of the crowd. So, Matt takes out his ears and just sings, starts singing "Shout to the Lord" into the front, audience, that's close to the stage. And then having that go to 20 to 25,000 people back on this, this open air field, and just everybody worshiping until they could fix the, until they could fix the actual generator. And so, like, things like that, it's everybody else is like, that's a panic moment, but it eventually got fixed. Everything got back and going, but some of those panic moments create, some very, very memorable moments.
I love that. I was getting a little bit of chills just because I can see in my mind Matt Redmon just sort of leaning into the front row and just starting to sing that chorus, and it just following through the crowd, and then as he's saying, 20 to 25,000 people singing that song. Like, that is a moment. And Blake, I'm speaking of moments of panic, Blake, let's play a game of you versus Kyle.
I was going to lead us to this beautiful moment of, like, we've heard this similar story and how I think God's trying to show us all on this podcast that, like, when the tech all goes out, he's still going to move. But no, here we go. Let's move to Toby's madness.
Yeah. So, Kyle, we like to play games occasionally with, we essentially like to expose Blake's lack of knowledge around technical things. So, since you do a lot of training and support for DiGiCo, we're going to play Name That Mixer.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name a model, which is not a brand.
We should also give him a heads up. Kyle, I'm going to run at this with reckless abandonment because I don't know anything. So I have to, what I lack in knowledge, I make up with enthusiasm and game theory. So the moment you think you know it, shout it out because that's what I'm going to do.
So Blake, I'm going to give you a little help here in that you have 5 brands of audio mixer to choose from. So
What were
any
the
of these
2 I
models.
missed?
No, well, I'm going to give you 5 brands.
Okay.
All of these models are one of these 5 brands. Okay? So the 5 brands are Yamaha, Avid, Midas, Allen and Heath, SSL.
Okay.
I didn't even throw out DiGiCo because, I mean, I feel like we preach into the choir. It wouldn't even be fair because Kyle wouldn't
and as we established at the beginning, DiGiCo is so fast and beyond these consoles. It can't even be in the same room as them.
Okay, so I started out with the first 5, Blake, we actually have in our warehouse in stock right now. So I'm giving you some help here, Blake. Okay,
It's not
number
gonna be
1.
enough.
So again, first one to shout out the manufacturer's name gets the point. So SC48.
SSL.
Avid.
Avid is correct. Blake, I'm really hoping you can get this one.
Come on.
M7CL.
Yamaha.
Oh,
Good job.
point to Blake. Okay, next is a Pro 2.
Midas.
Oh,
Point
I
Kyle.
knew that. I just put one of those on the early service.
Okay, next up we have an L500.
Yamaha.
SSL.
SSL is correct. We just got 2 of those in today, Blake. You
Well-
walked right by it as Boggs was testing it.
I actually almost ran into it because
Please
I
don't-
was looking back at.
Please don't run
I
into
was
the
looking
SSL.
back at Brian moving a speaker, and I didn't look. I really almost hit it.
Okay, next up we have SQ5.
SSL.
Allen Heath.
Allen and Heath is correct.
Look at this smooth operator.
Okay, now I'm digging in the trenches. So I literally had to go to Google for some of these. So we'll see how you do. I mean, Blake, you almost might win just because.
Just win. He's at 4-1 right now.
I know, but Kyle, if you know these, I'll be impressed. Here we go. M916.
Yamaha.
That is correct.
I'm going off of M7 naming conventions. They have an M.
Nice. Okay, how about a DM12?
Allen and Heath.
I'm gonna say Yamaha.
Incorrect for both of you. That's a Midas. Okay, how about a System 8?
Soundcraft.
That's not one of the options, Kyle.
Avid?
System 8.
You got 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. It's an Allen and Heath.
Okay.
That is a very, very old school analog Allen and Heath board.
Somewhere in America, a tech is listening to this and they were shouting it out. They knew
Totally.
it.
They're like, I used to have one of those. Okay,
I presently use it.
Final one, even though you can't win, Blake, because you're so far behind. Final one is 4046G+.
SSL.
Oh, you got it right.
Stupid SSL naming conventions. I don't like their models.
Well, Kyle won, so Blake, you have to spin the wheel
goodness.
of doom. So go ahead and give it a spin here.
Here we go. All right. Kyle, do you see what I put up with? We need HR.
What'd you win?
Oh, 10% of church gear.
You've gotten that before.
This is official, all right? That's signed.
No, it's not.
Yep, I have 10% of church gear. All right, Kyle, to get us back to some actual valuable content, I'm going to throw you under the bus of consoles and ask, what's your favorite console of all time? I want a DiGiCo console because you're a DiGiCo guy, but then I want a non-DiGiCo console if you're legally allowed to say.
I would say SD7 or Quantum 7 is still my favorite. Just lots of faders, can see a lot of things, and redundancy built in. Non-DiGiCo would probably be just because, again, it has a ton of faders, ton of encoders, was the 1D. Yamaha PM1D.
We have
Even
one of those
though-
for you, Kyle.
I saw one a few weeks ago. There's a school there in Nashville that still has one set up. But I did a lot of events, passion events early on when that was still kind of the option. But yeah, lots of encoders, lots of faders. Didn't sound the best, but it got the job done. So
Nice. Well, speaking of getting the job done, Kyle, can you tell us a tech takeaway that you would advise to all the church techs out there to make their Sundays better? Give us something good to wrap this episode on all of our nonsense.
Be really good at paperwork.
I like that. I haven't heard that one. What's that mean?
Yeah, it's in the case of I've come into some situations where we going in to do a training where they kind of don't know their system, like where things are, where it might be like a box sale. So they've requested training, but nothing's been documented in the past where things are and how things patch, and so not knowing exactly where things are in the case of there's an emergency. I used to be, when I was, project managing a lot of the Passion events, it was, just binders of information, because, in the heat of the moment, as something comes up, you want to document it and you're not like, oh, how did I do that again? So that, and then outside of that is, I would say for churches, just because you have VLANs, don't put just everything on VLANs. It turns into a lot of troubleshooting later on down the road if somebody accidentally reconfigures their switches and things aren't talking correctly. Especially with our gear, try to keep them on their own islands. So yeah, those are my two things.
Nice.
What's a VLAN, Blake?
It's the land of the Virgin Islands where Richard Branson goes to come up with his next business idea.
That was pretty good, actually.
All right. Well, Kyle, man, we really appreciate you coming on. What audio consoles do you want to plug?
Or anything else?
This is sponsored by Quantum 338. No,
that was great. That was great. You say you're not a public speaker. That was awesome.
Radio voice. No, I would just say, check out our website, digico.biz, and then klang.com, KLANG.com, for products. And just, keep a lookout throughout the year for new and fun things.
Yeah, all the fun stuff that he wouldn't tell us on air.
Let's start making up a bunch of new innovations and then saying that DiGiCo's going to come out with them. Like that can, totally like launch a rocket ship or like save you on fuel or discount groceries. Like DiGiCo is coming out with discount groceries.
There we go. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, thanks for coming on, man.
No worries.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
Blake, speaking of discount groceries, where can I find some discount groceries?
At Aldi?
Groceries are so expensive.
They are. The price of inflation's going up. You got to pay all these people here. I keep embezzling money. I mean, things are expensive.
And it's very frustrating for people that just want to buy DiGiCo consoles because it's like you do have to eat, unfortunately.
Not if you're Drew Hester. Drew kept joking about buying a DiGiCo console. And I
don't think he's joking. I think he's really trying to figure out, like, do I have more kids or just buy a DiGiCo?
I'm now realizing I might have helped him steal that when I loaded that in the car. I thought he was taking it to a customer, but it might have been...
I get it.
Oh, crap.
I'm now going to tag and share that moment and take back the 10% of church gear that you won from your Wheel of Doom.
Yeah, well, okay, I guess that's my penance. But hey, while I still have 10% of church gear, use code podcast to get 11% off at churchgear.com, and it'll save you some money. And then maybe you can steal something from Toby as well.
It will not save you on groceries, though, unfortunately.
Try it at Aldi. Okay.
Nonsense.